Hi everyone and welcome to today's session. We're delighted to be back with another edition of the Construction Clinic, and today with a twist. We're going to be focusing on careers in our job seeker special. So if you have questions relating to CVs, career shifts, anything job related, the construction job market, please have your questions ready because we have a great panelist ready to take your questions today. We've got both members and non-members online today. So as usual, we're just going to go through a brief introduction to the ICCP before we open the clinic for questions. Okay, so what is the ICCP? Well, we are a professional members organisation and we recognise those with skills, qualifications and expertise in the professional management of claims. We've got three main objectives, and those are to establish international professional standards for the management of claims, to give recognition to those who have gained the appropriate knowledge and experience in the management of claims, and also to help and educate those who would like to gain this experience. We offer three levels of membership: associate, member and fellow. I'm not going to go into all the details today. You'll find all of the information on the website of what's required to join at each level. But similar to other institutes, each level has a certain set of prerequisites which must be met in order to gain entry at that level. The only thing I'd like to highlight here is that we're aware that job markets, salaries vary across different parts of the world. So we do offer concessionary rates depending on where you reside. And those would be a 50% concession on both the application fee and the annual membership fees. So that may help some of you depending on where you are. A brief overview of the membership benefits. So again, there's a lot of detail here, which I'm not going to go into too much, but just to cover the main ones. So industry knowledge, we have a private members area where we put all content relating to contracts and claims. So that may be in the form of articles and papers, which are all downloadable. And then we have sections for education, training and bookshop. So within those sections, you'll find details on higher education courses, CPD training, and within the bookshop, the latest industry releases which you may wish to purchase. We then have practical templates. So our committee and fellows, the most experienced members within the membership community, have all been taking their time to put together templates which you can download and use on your projects. Of note there, probably the biggest one is a full claim document template of what we think an effective claim should be compiled as. We've then got things like templates for daily site reports, maintaining a notice register, all things that you may find useful to use when managing your projects. Like the session today, we also do monthly CPD webinars. Some of those are public and some are for members only. I'd also like to mention that just this week we've launched the ICCP Academy. So this will be for members only and focusing on training and practical how-to style sessions, all things that a claims practitioner would need to know. Ways to manage their projects, or for example, when we're talking of the templates, how to use these templates and to make sure that you are being as effective as you can be in your roles. And some of the softer benefits, savings on training, savings on books, and also a monthly members newsletter so you can keep up to date with what's happening. And then we have industry exposure, so all members are listed on our list on the website. So sticking with the theme of today's job seeker special, if you are looking for a new job and an employer would like to verify your membership, they can do so through this list. And then the usual things you would expect with any membership, your certificate and membership logos to display on your public profiles to illustrate that you are part of our community. We also have an optional benefit in our register of claims practitioners. So this is normally for those who perhaps working as consultants or freelancers or self-employed, would like to showcase their skills and experience through this online profile. We also include your contact details, so anybody looking to appoint somebody for claims services can contact you through there. Okay, so on to today's panelist. We're delighted to welcome Mick Donaghy. Mick is based in Australia and he's co-founder of Franklin Smith Australia, a specialist staffing agency focusing on quantifiable jobs in the built environment industry. He's podcast host of Made to Measure, a leading career podcast specializing in showcasing the lives of successful construction professionals, and event organizer of Estimators and Entertainment, a local meetup event that's held throughout Australia, bringing together the best estimators and quantity surveyors in the country. Welcome to the session, Mick. I hope you are well. So the clinic is now open and we're going to move across to our first question.
A stepping stone in order to get into that sort of final position of maybe it's a construction arbitration role or it's a specialist within construction law. But in order to get to that point, you have to use your previous experience and previous skill sets to get there. So I believe like moving into something like a client-side project management role would be that first step. That client-side project management role could lead into something a little bit more specific with regards to construction law. Typically, you find that project management consultancies will bill other contractors for their time. So if you've got a construction law background or a construction law degree, that's going to be highly beneficial to them as you're bringing a level of sort of competitive advantage to their capability, and they're able to bill you out for the experience and qualifications that you have. So moving into something like that, so it could be a client-side project management role, focusing on heavy civils again, but it's just in a different type of position that will utilize your experience previously and allow you to benefit from what you've studied, and moving forward, it will allow you to get into what you want.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, have you seen an increase in claims skills being requested within job descriptions for roles such as QSs and Contracts Managers, perhaps as a result of COVID?
So right now, I would say yes in many ways, because any professional that is a specialist within claims management, variation management, it's been a really challenging time for contractors, and there's been a lot of sort of extensions of time, projects pushed back. Obviously, there's a lot of negotiating going on and behind the scenes with regards to might be developers or councils or anything like that. So if you're a specialist in a particular area, it's becoming more and more relevant to have that type of experience and capability. But what I would also say is that if you're a professional or an expert in many different areas within construction, there is a demand for that, and there will be a demand for that going forward. So many people have been made redundant, and a lot of people have been unlucky. But some companies have used this pandemic as a way of, what they're saying would be shedding some fat. So I would say that most of the participants here who have been made redundant, of course, they're going to have been unlucky. But if you're experiencing a particular facet of the industry, lots of companies will be looking to hire those people moving forward, because they're going to be hired. They want to hire the best. They want to hire the people who have the the qualifications and the experience and are members of particular associations such as this one, because that gives them the confidence that they're hiring the best people who are invested in their careers and invested in their professional development and are going to respect the companies that they work for.
Okay, and possibly leading on from that, the next question, how valuable do you consider it to be for candidates to have experience with one of the major consultancies, HKA, for example?
I think it's obviously it's important to have any sort of tier one level experience. You don't necessarily it doesn't have to necessarily be, the global consultancies as such, but it always looks good on your CV. It's a well-known brand. It's recognized globally. It allows you to maybe apply for different roles around the world, because you've got that global brand on your CV. Whereas if it was a local consultancy, companies in Brisbane, where I am, might not relate to that. If you're in London and you're working for one of the big consultancies, and I'm a hiring manager in Sydney or Auckland or Dublin or wherever it might be, there's just something that there's a reliability and a relationship that they'll have with that company in their mind. So certainly it always looks good, but you don't always have to have it.
Yeah, I suppose with that question, it's almost like the stamp of approval, isn't it? That if you've got that on your CV, you would then expect that person has a certain degree of skill to be hired and gained that experience in the first place. But not to say that if you don't have that if you can equally demonstrate those skill, and obviously through the interview process as well. Many companies now, they have a 2 or 3 step interview process, don't they? And some of that I know from speaking to some ICCP members, when they've interviewed with one of the big consultancies comes to mind actually, but they've actually been given a case study based on a claim, and they've been asked how they would deal with it. So is that something that you see as well, where candidates are being asked to demonstrate their experience through practical style interview processes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think every company right now is taking a risk-adverse approach to hiring. So what in terms of what we do, we focus on the technical and the cultural. Now, most companies say that they'll hire based on cultural suitability, but technical experience is extremely important in today's environment. Companies don't want to lose money. Companies don't want to put extra risk on top of themselves. They don't want unwanted overheads within the business. So they need to make sure that you can perform at the top level technically, and then also that you're a good cultural fit for the business as well.
Okay. All right, on to our next question. In your experience, how much weight do clients put on professional memberships when filing positions?
So I think it's definitely changed over the last couple of years. So I've worked in the UK, Ireland, New Zealand, and Australia, and I've certainly noticed over the last couple of years that working in or being a member of professional associations is becoming more and more in demand. I think the reason I'm seeing it is that those who bother to go through the membership process, and I know it's not an easy one at times, but it just shows a level of commitment to their career, and that they're serious about professional development and becoming the best engineer or quantity surveyor or whatever it might be. So that certainly it's becoming more and more prevalent, and it certainly as well cuts out the good from the great from the good in many ways. If you're completely put all your effort into getting as many accreditations, qualifications, professional memberships, and experience as you can, it can only be a good thing. And companies recognize that for sure.
Mm. Speaking of companies and leading on from that, I mean, in your experience, obviously you'll be dealing with companies regularly that are looking to recruit. How much do they check on those qualifications and membership of the professional institutes that an applicant may be a member of? How rigorous does that process tend to be?
It's not very rigorous typically. I can nearly 10 years in the construction recruitment game, and I can maybe count on one hand how many times a company has followed up and checked qualifications. I think at face value, if someone's lying about being a member or having a particular qualification, it's not the right type of person you probably want in your business, but certainly reference checking is getting more rigorous. I'm taking 4 or 5 references on intermediate level candidates right now, and they, as I say, companies are becoming more risk adverse. You have to prove why you want, why they should hire you in many ways. So it's all becoming a lot more difficult and a lot more challenging.
Okay. So let's have a look at our list. What have we got coming through? Please, as well, if anyone online, if you have any questions, please send them through. It's your half an hour to get some tips and advice from Mick today. Okay. I was with the same company for quite a few years. Now I'm looking for a new job. I'm open to a QS position or contracts management. Is it sensible to have 2 versions of my CV?
Yeah, it probably is. It probably is sensible, and again, it depends on the type of QS role you're applying for. So if you're applying for a professional quantity surveying role, and that's consultancy side, I would even maybe have 3 versions of your CV. Now it's not nice to have so many versions of the one document, but what I always say to people is the more effort that you put in, the more that you're going to get out of it. So if you have a professional quantity surveying CV, a contractor quantity surveying CV, and a contract management CV, it just really, I guess, it means that you're able to apply for the right jobs without having to rewrite your CV each time, which can be really, really frustrating. So certainly I would have separate CVs for the roles that you're applying for, ideally.
And let's have a look, see what our next one is. Okay, do you often try to place permanent candidates for full-time claims positions outside of claims consultancies? Do regular companies have claims consultants or those experiencing claims on their staff?
Sometimes. So typically what I find is that usually when it's getting to that point of, high level of quantities of claims, usually a company will bring someone in on a contract basis. A lot of the time, especially tier 1, tier 2 main contractors, if they're working on a big hospital and there's 1,000, 2,000 variations on site, they just want to get through them as proficiently as possible. So they'll bring in contract resources in order to see that through. One thing that's obviously quite frustrating, and I'm sure you've all experienced it, is that construction, typically there's not much foreplanning involved. That they don't realize that the level of maybe detail or planning that needs to be put in place in order to hire people on a permanent basis to see that through. So you typically see that a lot of that stuff gets contracted out or contracted out to a consultancy that specializes in it.
And Okay, a question relating to LinkedIn. Obviously, LinkedIn is the main platform that people use when looking to network professionally. I've heard that being active on LinkedIn is important to being seen by people in my network. What does that mean, and how can I make sure to use LinkedIn effectively when I'm looking for a new job?
Yep. So LinkedIn is important, but maybe not as important as a lot of people make it out to be. So I know some of the best candidates I've ever dealt with don't have a LinkedIn account. But if you're currently on the market right now and you're really looking to break down doors and get the job that you need or that you want, certainly the more people that can see you and you're visible to, the more opportunities that you're going to get. So one thing is that people within professionals within claims, quantity surveying, or construction, it can be daunting to start writing content. You might be employed by a global business and there might be social media standards in place and stuff like that. But what I would recommend is start by starting to comment. So when you see a post that you're interested in, write something sustainable, write something that's interesting, write something that gives value to the person who's posted, because that particular comment then becomes visible to your entire network. Now you could start with one comment a week and build yourself up to 3 comments a week, and then build yourself up to a comment per day. But what that does is it just begins to showcase you as a thought leader within that particular field. When you become a thought leader within that field, you'll get more opportunities provided to you. So certainly it's important, and that can be a way of, allowing yourself to break into the LinkedIn and social media world, but a little bit more of a softer approach. It can be daunting writing content and creating content and doing all this sort of stuff. And it's a good way to get your confidence built up.
I suppose as well with LinkedIn, it's if, for example, you're looking to move career, or if you're say you're working now as a contract administrator and you'd like to move into a claims focused role, start following people that are working in those roles, perhaps, the companies that specialize in hiring people with that skill set, and following what they're doing, commenting on their content. As you say, it's that thing of standing out from the crowd, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The more that you can be visible to the market that you want to get yourself into, the better.
And also, I think looking at people that have already done it, for every step that it's often even outside of careers, when you want to make a change, or look to those that have already done it, or look to those that are already where you would like to be. You're not going to climb that mountain overnight, but look at the steps that those people have taken. Do they hold professional memberships? What type of experience have they managed to get? What type of training do they take part in? All of this is layers onto your career that's going to help you navigate to that next step. So find those mentors within your industry, I suppose, that you can look to and guide your own learning and your own progression.
No, absolutely. 100% agree with that.
Okay, let's go back to our question box. We really try to stick to the time on these sessions. So we've got a few minutes left. So if you do have any final questions, please send them through. Let's have a look. Okay. This relates to consultancies, or whether companies are trying to, I guess, manage their claims in-house. Is claims experience something that you're often asked for when filing roles? Are you seeing a trend where companies are trying to meet their claims needs internally rather than outsourcing to a claims consultancy?
Well, in the current market right now, a lot of companies don't want to hire permanent overheads into their business, because they're just not too sure of what's around the corner. Australia's been probably has managed COVID probably one of the best in the world. and still a lot of companies want to hire on a contract basis, whether that's 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months, because they need to know that overhead isn't going to be continuously in the business. So what they do is they underwrite that as a sort of a project cost. Now, with regards to cost consultancies, I'm certainly noticing in the market that I work within is that there's definitely an upsurge. So that could maybe correlate that a lot of main contractors and construction companies don't want to hire permanent staff to manage their claims. They're outsourcing that, and they're willing to pay an extra bit of money in order to get that managed remotely and outsource that.
Okay. Right. Well, that covers the questions. One more question through. Okay. From next year onwards, what's the forecast for the construction job market in the GCC in general, and Qatar in particular? What's the demand for project controls professionals? And obviously, being based in Australia, that might not be a market that you're familiar with. But any thoughts there, Mick?
So I'm not. I'll put my hands up and say I don't know the local market in the Middle East, but what I'm noticing here locally is that because there's been so much lost revenue over the last 12 months, that I'm envisioning explosive growth. Now, that might not be January, but it could well be June, could well be July. It all really, I guess, when it's all going to come to play when things really get back to normal. So when things are really back to normal and there's no restrictions with regards to international travel, the vaccines in play, then my feeling is that there's going to be considerable growth. You have to remember is that a lot of people haven't traveled internationally to get jobs. So I'd imagine there's a huge expat basis in the Middle East, and I'd imagine that a lot of those people that may have been coming in to that sector over the last sort of 6 to 9 months haven't been doing so. And so what you'll probably find is that there's going to be a skills shortage in that particular market at some point. It might not be now because construction companies are still a level of risk adverse, but come what may, as they say, that it's going to happen, and be ready for it. They'll need experienced people, and that's when being part of institutions, being part of professionally developing yourself and making yourself stand out from the crowd. That's where you're going to go in and be able to earn more money or get a better job or become more successful by working on more interesting projects. That's when that all comes into play. But it's going to come. It can't stay like this forever. So be prepared for it.
Yeah, that's great advice. It's just biding your time and making sure that you're doing everything you need to do to be in a position to secure a job when it becomes available.
Absolutely. I think my feeling is that there's jobs out there, and even in the worst of times, there will be jobs out there. And if you speak to, I would say, 100 of the top CEOs in the world, listed on the stock exchange, nearly every single one of them will say that their biggest asset is their people. And so no matter what, you're in the market that you're in, you're still the biggest asset. And so you've just really got to convey that and go out there and attack the market and go out there and get that job that you want.
Okay, right. We're a few minutes past the half an hour mark, so I think we'll wrap things up there. Thank you to everybody who submitted questions. Mick, if people want to find you, if they want to get in touch with Franklin Smith, how do they do that? Where can they go for information?
I'm quite active on LinkedIn. So if you search for me on LinkedIn, it's Mick Donaghy. I also have a podcast called Made to Measure, a construction podcast. So each week I release a career clinic episode, which is a very, very short episode where I'll give you advice and information on how you can win the job and go out there and really move yourself forward in your career. And I also interview leading construction professionals. So you can find me there and you can find me on LinkedIn.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your time today. I really hope that everybody on the session has found that useful. You've got some good tips. If you'd ever like any advice, please do get in touch with Mick via the channels he's mentioned, or get in touch with us at the ICCP. We're always, this is one of the areas that we would really like to focus on, as particularly for our members, developing your skills, developing your expertise, helping you to move up through not only the membership ladder, but the career ladder. So we're here to support you. And if you are looking for a role, best of luck with your search. And we look forward to seeing you again in January for the next webinar, which will be announced soon. So for those that will be celebrating, have a fantastic Christmas and New Year, and best wishes for 2021. Thanks again, Mick, and we'll see you all again soon.
Thank you.